Okay, so for today I am playing Random Best of Ones. This is a new feature on my ranked ladder on my Discord down below. I'm also testing out some different chat features. You'll see chat showing up directly below me. And I had something else, but I completely forgot now. But anyways, in true random faction fashion, I've managed to queue up into a mirror matchup up against Legion here, or yeah, Tomb King's mirror matchup. And lucky for me, he's gone for a box up against my Ushabti Greatbow. So this should actually be a pretty nice situation for me. Ooh, Shem's Burning Gaze does come down on Ark in the Black, though. He takes a ton of damage. I'm gonna have to pull away with him before he gets sniped out. And then my Ushabti are just gonna be sniping. Best of their ability. This box does look pretty difficult to pull apart, though. And we're gonna have to see if I can manage to do that. Let's see, what do we got? We got a Necrotect, Lich Priest of Death, tons of halberds. And I'm wondering what I should be focus firing here. Maybe the Lich Priest, so he doesn't kill off Arkan. But I'm not sure. There's a lot of healing here, and that's going to be a little bit scary. The front line is just Skeleton Spearmen, though. So I think my infantry should be a good deal more elite than what we have, what Legion has. I also have these chariots, which are almost useless in this situation, but they should be able to help first the infantry fairly well, I think. I have the Ushabti that can come in. So let's just try this out. I feel like my Ushabti Greatbows are going to be fairly good here. And the chariots might be able to do okay too, just pulling through the infantry. They might be able to kill them pretty quickly. So let's go ahead and try it out. Khalida too is gonna be a little bit hard to deal with, but not impossible. As you have these Ushabti Greatbow, and with some focus fire, I think she will go down eventually. Chariots too will continue bouncing around, and I have a lot of elite infantry. They should be able to do pretty well. This backline of Tomb Guard too should be pretty easy cycle charging for me. So let's go ahead and do that. Spirit Leech this Lich Priest of Death, and then use a Necrotect to heal up my Ushabti. Khalida should slowly go down, slowly but surely. And with the Spirit Leeches on the Necrotect, I think I'm in a fairly good position. Another Shem's Burning Gaze does go down on Ark in the Black. But he should be able to hold up pretty well here, I think. As this Lich Priest of Death is nearly down. Khalida's getting pretty low too, so I think I got it. Yep, epic lore of death trades indeed. Also, I just noticed my my chat box is way in my chat box is in a really awkward position. It's overlapping me. Let me see if I can fix that real quick. Boom, there we go. Much better. Now, yeah, so far I'm trading out pretty well. I still have a ton of Ushabti, and really I just need to make sure Ark in the Black doesn't die here by continuing to Spirit Leech this Lich Priest of Death. If I can actually kill him off, should be pretty good. And then my infantry should be able to carry out the rest of the day. Not to mention I still have the Ushabti Greatbow. There we go. Another Spirit Leech, just trading right into each other, but it looks like my infantry are coming out really well on top. Ark in the Black, though, is getting really low, though, so I'm going to run away with him again. As, of course, I really do not want him to die to the Lich Priest, but here we go. The peak Tomb King's experience. Just grinding infantry against each other, so I guess I'll hang out with chat while we wait for this infantry fight to clear up. I'm a bit worried about the single entities here for Legion, because he does have quite a few of them. I'm wondering how well the Ushabti actually do in that situation. I think they do okay, but not entirely sure. For this Lich Priest, he is slowly getting worn down. That's pretty good. I will have to waste a few great bow shots to finish him off, though. Maybe I'll send in a Necrotech. The in-game is really loud. Thank you for the heads up. It is now quieter. Hopefully that works out a tiny bit. And yeah, as long as Arkan the Black stays nice and safe in the back, then I think I should be okay. All right. So yeah, how's it going, guys? There's nothing left to commentate at this point. I'm using my Ushabti summon right now just to try and push back these single entities. Seems like I also mismicroed my Ushabti. I should not have gone them stuck fighting these big single entities. That was definitely a bad idea. But Khalid's almost dead. So that's pretty good. The Ushabti are running out of ammunition. But as soon as Khalid's dead and this Lich Priest is dead too, I don't think there's any more sniping that can come in from Legion. And then I should be able to win it from there. Balance of power is not in my favor though. So we're gonna have to change things up a tiny bit. See, it seems like my halberds are actually having a pretty rough time. So it could be bad. It could actually be quite bad here. Let's see the Ushabti Great Bow. How are they holding up? It seems like they are now getting engaged on by the Hyro Titan. We'll have to disengage. But at least the Lich Priest of Death is gone. So I think Arkan the Black can now properly start Spirit Leeching things to death. As for the Hyro Titan, I guess I'll try sniping it with my Ushabti. But the loss of my infantry is unexpected and quite terrible. The bottom left portrait of Arkan looks like he's wearing sunglasses. Actually, indeed it does. Maybe he is wearing sunglasses. This is what happens when the battle goes on for too long. But here we go. Let's start Spirit Leeching some targets. The Ushabti will kill off these single entities. And then I have a bunch of Necrotechs too, which will hopefully fare okay in combat. Another Spirit Leech does drop on Arkan the Black from the Hyro Titan, presumably. And if it kills him off, then that'd be pretty bad. Looks like he's at 200 HP. He's crumbling, but if he manages to stabilize, that would be good. Definitely no guarantee though. And there we go. Classic Arkan the Black. He does manage to stabilize. So if I can just keep him alive long enough, then I can use up the rest of the Spirit Leeches, hopefully kill off Khalida. But I think Legion's got it. The Sphinx is now chasing Arkan. And my poor Ushabti Great Bow. Just not enough ammunition. Also, surprisingly enough, the Sphinx does catch Arkan. Or I guess he just crumbles naturally. That's pretty devastating. So needless to say, that's pretty bad. That's pretty bad. I think I could have won this game if I had been more careful with Arkan the Black. But there was a lot of sniping. Perhaps another unit of Ushabti Great Bow would have really sealed the deal here. And I was pretty surprised that the infantry died, but whatever. GG to Legion, winning a solid best of one. Alright, sick. So let's take a quick look. The Ushabti did really good, but they didn't actually kill off anything. Perhaps some better focus fire would have done well. I think the Necrotechs did okay, but I'm wondering if the chariots could have been microed better. That was probably my big losing point there. The chariots and the Ushabti dying off were pretty unnecessary. And I think I could have done that better, but it comes with learning the new matchup. So, this next match is Greenskins up against Hadries. And I've gone a very wide infantry build. He has gone a Poison Wind Mortar build with a ton of defensive troops. And I'm going to be focusing on my Chariot Micro to try and punch through his infantry. We'll see how that goes. as I wheel my army about. I also have spells that I can throw down, like Brain Burster and Edbutt. And as for the single entities, I'll be dealing with them using the Might of Grimgore. Grimgore, an a real fighter specialist. Should do okay against single entities, but I'm a bit worried if he gets gooned up. So I really have to win the infantry fight quickly if I want to actually push through into these Skaven lines. Immediately, a clan rat summon does go down. But I do have my chariot, so that's actually not especially scary. I should be able to clear them up rather quickly, I think. Although it looks like they will be able to dive in onto my goblins and possibly slow them down a bit. But still, I feel like that's a fairly efficient trade for me. Now, as for my spells, I want to be hitting clan rats as opposed to anything else, as clan rats will fall much, it's much more cost efficient to hit up the clan rats with my spells, just saving a bit of money. Let's also see how good these spells do against these mortar teams. Go down and an Edbutt. Looks like it does basically no damage, a bit unfortunate, but not too bad. And I can just continue pushing forwards now. There is a Throt moving in towards my chariots. A potential for me to catch him out, but it looks like he does disengage. And now I can use my chariots to try and punch through this infantry. There are quite a few clan rat spears, but I'm going to see if I can move at an angle and try and break their charge defense by hitting them on the flanks, avoiding the brood horrors where I can. And now with the front line engaged, let's see how things go. I have to get my infantry in quickly as I can, and the chariots need to be diving in and shutting down the mortars and the other poison wind units. I also have fanatics, should be fairly good, and a ton of spells too. So let's see how this goes. The troops, it's very important that I actually chase them off as quickly as I can, and that I have troops in reserve to actually chase them properly. So yeah, let's just do that. If I can also break some of the Skaven, that would be good. And to break them, I'll be charging them in the back with my chariots and trying to catch them out with my spiders too. There are the unit of council guard that I'll have to deal with though, as they are unbreakable and rather hard to actually deal with. Also, a lot of my mobile troops have actually routed off. Going to be a bit of a problem, because I actually want to make sure these guys continue running. So I'm actually going to pull some infantry, chase these guys instead. As for Grimgore, I guess he's going to look for a fight up against Throt. Should work out pretty well. Some fanatics to rout off the council guard. And then we'll see if I'm able to actually punch through into the back line. So far, it's a little bit of a task. And with the Swamp Things routing, it means that I won't really have a source of terror in just a second. Throt and the Packmaster too, fighting on Grimgore. We'll see if he's actually as good of a fighter as you would expect him to be based on his lore. He's taking pretty high damage, but he's holding his own fairly well. The Packmaster has actually taken quite a bit of damage. It looks like I might even get him to rout, surprisingly enough, which means I can immediately chase him off with my spiders. And honestly, so far, it seems like Grimgore is doing pretty good here. Yeah, he chased off a Packmaster on his own, essentially. So definitely not too bad. As for the Poisoned Wind, looks like I am doing... the shutting them down is going okay. Nothing too amazing, as they are still able to get a few more volleys off, but now that I have my infantry on top of them for a second time, I think that should be the end of all the poison wind here. And there we go, one rout's off. Very good. A bunch of my troops are rallying too. Chased off the Packmaster, and now it's Grimgore against Throt. Now, Grimgore, does he have anti-large? He doesn't, but he has some very good combat stats. Not good enough to get cycle charged a ton though. So I want to make sure that, yeah, I want to make sure that any cycle charges onto him are negated as best as possible. For these goblins, it seems like some Skaven slaves are diving in on top of them. I can pretty easily, I can just run away from the Skaven slaves, since I'd much rather throw down some fanatics on top of more grouped up units. But it looks like the moment there aren't too many troops that we can actually hit. Alright. Here we go. So let's take stock of the situation. There are a bunch of rallying Skaven troops, and I need to actually find a way to finish them off. I need my mobile elements to actually come in and handle that. And as for Grimgor, he is still trading fairly well into Thwart, which is very good. I'm going to see if I can actually pull him. Remember, he did get nerfed recently, and Thwart, his melee defense is much lower than it used to be, so he'll be taking a lot more damage than you might expect. And from that, I think I should be okay. It looks like Grimgor did actually manage to carry in most of these single entity fights. Only problem is that Thwart is regenerating, and I don't have a lot of mobile units left, so a lot of these Skaven forces are actually rallying. So it could be pretty bad. Alright, Thwart's coming in for another charge on Grimgor. Let's see if I can kill him here. I got tons of debuffs I can throw down on top of him. He's getting pinned down by the mass of the trolls, and with all the buffs of Grimgor, I think he should be going down pretty quickly. Looks like he doesn't manage to disengage despite the nerfs to his mass. And there's still a lot of Skaven forces left on the fringes. I can make sure they don't come back though using the spiders. And let's see, as for all the Skaven infantry here, I can pretty easily deal with them with a brain burst stuff. So that works out pretty well. A lot of them are beginning to rout now. Grimgor is still doing okay, but he's slowly getting whittled down by Thwart. Let's see here. Yeah, just the constant cycle charging is pretty scary. Does every greenskin build have heavily rely on spiders and trolls? Not every greenskin build, but it is a very common element. Yep, tactical reserves. Yeah, chat was talking about me forgetting my spiders, right? Yeah, whoopsie daisies, but you know what? Things still worked out pretty well. Surprisingly enough, Grimgor did actually win all of his fights here. I wouldn't have expected it, but against Thwart and a Packmaster, he actually put quite the beating on. And there we go, Thwart's routed off. And that's gonna be GG. Hey, look at that. Grimgor, the mad lad indeed. Biblington. Alright. So, surprisingly enough, yeah, let's just take a quick look at his damage value. Yep. Wow, that is the best I've seen Grimgor do in a while. Look at that. He is the best. Who would have guessed? Yeah, he fought off a Packmaster and Thwart. He got more value than both of them. Wow, that is surprising. I would not have expected it. As for my chariots, they all did pretty good. Spiders in reserve, of course. Perfect playstyle. Of course you want to use your mobility a bit more efficiently there, but it looks like things worked out fairly well. So here we go. I've gone for a little bit of a strange build today. I accidentally took an army that is way too small. I'm down about 70 units. It does have a cart though, and it is very susceptible to repeater crossbows. It's why I brought these Scourge Runner chariots. I'm going to try and pick off the crossbows so that my flying air squad can dominate the skies. That's basically the idea. It's just a million single entities. There's nothing too crazy going on here. So let's go ahead and try it out. Scourge Runners, go! Kill those Dark Riders. And as for my infantry, they're just gonna march right on up and try and get to an engagement to go ahead and deal with all this madness. There are a ton of repeater crossbows that will actually do quite a bit to my chariots. A bit unfortunate, but I can chase down Loke here. I'm going to send one Manticore down. Try and deal with the yeah, I'm going to send one Manticore down. Try and chase off these repeater crossbows. And as for my Beastmaster, he's not actually helping out Rakarth here. It turns out the Beastmaster was actually quite far away from Rakarth at the time. He's going to need to dive in and try and support. And if he can actually kill off Loke here, then that would be a pretty nice victory. I'll use my debuff to remove the I'll use my debuff to remove the terror on the Manticore, so I can actually terror route it. And then I'm just gonna continue chasing down Loki or Felheart. I have lost all of my everything here, but I should be able to kill off Loki at the very least. I have a ton of buffs that I can throw down. I will be losing Rakarth though, and that's gonna be a pretty bad situation. Loki even manages to escape, and it looks like Rakarth is indeed going to fall. Oh dear, this is pretty bad. This went about as well as I would expect. Surprisingly enough, Loki actually held up pretty well, and I was going to be bringing in a breath attack, and that's going to be a lot of damage on my forces. I think accidentally forgetting my Beastmaster might have done me in, along with a bunch of other mistakes, but let's see if a miracle can be pulled out. Indeed it cannot, although Loki, he does take some hits from the Beastmaster. Let's see if we can actually take him out before the battle actually ends. Yep, solid build, solid play indeed. Ice Power, this was hard to play, don't worry about it. Oh my gosh, GG. Brutal. Alright, so I guess we settled it. Loki is better than Rakarth. We totally did it. So, absolutely brutal. I thought these Scourge Runners would do better against the crossbows, but that didn't work out as well as I would have thought. I had a feeling that these guys would cause a problem for my single entities, and it turns out the Scourge Runners really are not enough to deal with them. What I should have taken instead probably would be Dark Riders, and I think if I had a few Dark Riders to shut these guys down, I would have won that air battle a lot better. As for Loki, he got a lot of damage, jeez. And his extra stat buffs make him pretty hard to kill too. So, although the game was a bit of a meme, I think I learned the tiniest scrap of information from it. Alright, but here we go. Lizardmen versus Lizardmen. Somehow I've managed to queue up into another mirror matchup. I'm wondering if I should just leave chat on right now. Some people say it's distracting, but I'll play with it on for now and disable it if it ever feels like it gets out of hand. Now, for my army, I've gone for a heavy infantry army with no chameleon skinks. The plan is to ward them off using these skink cohorts with javelins, and then use all the extra money to fund a bunch more Saurus warriors. With all that extra infantry, I should be able to win the frontline fight. And as long as they don't get run over by cavalry, I think I'm fairly comfortable. Now, my cohorts with javelins actually didn't do too much damage with their initial volley onto these chameleon skinks. A little bit unfortunate, but I think I should still be fine. The Ripperdactyls should be able to ward off any cavalry, so I'm not too worried about that. And as for Nakai the Wanderer, I think I should be able to kill him off pretty quickly. Now, these red-crested skinks, I need to wind blast them as much as possible, otherwise they will kill off my Saurus warriors. And then, as for the cavalry, let's go ahead and bring in the Ripperdactyls. That should work out pretty well. Saurus warriors will just continue pushing through the lines, and the skinks will go ahead and move into the back line. Ripperdactyls doing okay against the Cold One Riders, but it does look like they managed to escape. Let's pull back away with the Ripperdactyls. And then... let's see, I guess and then I should really be getting my single entities engaged somewhere. They are just on top of cavalry right now, but with the salamander shooting into them. I don't want them to stay in that fight for too long. For the red-crested skinks, another wind blast should be able to rout them off. That manticore summon sound is extremely loud. I'll fix up the sound later. Now, for the left flank, things are going fairly well. The left flank is holding up pretty well. My single entities are still alive, and I'm going to pull them away from this manticore, just because I don't really want to fight it, and then instead loop around to try diving into the back line of the lizardmen. Just marching in directly towards them, and then looping my 2 carnosaurs into the back too. To try and finish them off. Ripperdactyls should be able to do fairly well, and the red-crested skinks can start getting into the action too. They'll be especially good against any single entities here. And with just some chameleon skinks left, I might be able to do well diving into the backline. But chameleon skinks are pretty scary. And they can kill off my my 2 big monsters here if I'm not careful. As for this skink priest of beasts too, I have to be pretty wary of him, as he can summon another manticore. So finishing him off is going to be a bit of a priority. As for my Carnosaur, it looks like it will be going down to the Umbral Tide, unfortunately. And I don't think there's too much I can really do on that front. So things are actually looking a little bit scary. The Carnosaur has taken a lot of damage. I have routed off the Skink Priests of Beasts though. But the question is, will I have enough infantry actually going on into the late game? A lot of my forces have been routed off, so I'm actually lacking on infantry just a tiny bit. And see if Krokgar has enough oomph in him to actually kill off all the single entities. Chameleon Skinks kiting are going to be a bit of a problem. But as long as I can keep the salamanders busy, I think I'll be in a decent position at the very least. My Carnosaur is still alive too. Skink Priest of Beast is routing off, which is good. But there's still a Razor-Dawn hunting pack shooting at Krokgar. And we'll see if we can actually kill off this Skink Priest. It's taking a while, and it means that I can't kill off the single entities here. But I really don't want to deal with another Manticore. Could be a bit of a misplay, so we'll have to see. We'll just continue chasing him down. And then, with the Chameleon Skinks almost out of ammunition, there is a chance Ripperdactyls can kill off the Astylodon too. But they're still in the Kai, and Krokgar is pretty beat up. I'll dive him into the forest so he can stop taking missile damage. Then he'll loop around and try and assist in this final battle. No guarantee that it'll go well though. I do have quite a bit of infantry, but with the salamanders coming in to support, they're probably gonna do quite a bit of damage here. And the first volley does come in. My Saurus warriors do take a pretty nasty hit. They're still holding up okay though. And we'll see if Krokgar can actually come back to help. I think chasing off that Skink Priest was probably a bad idea. I had an opportunity to kill off Nakai and the Solar Engine, and it seems like that opportunity could be lost now. Krokgar too, now taking some pretty big volleys from the Salamanders. He's looking to be in a pretty rough position, and I think that'll probably be it. Go ahead and throw down some buffs. Try and get him into the fight. I have a Hand of the Gods too that I completely didn't use. But let's go ahead and just send him in and see if he can take out some single entities here. Let's see. It looks like I won't be able to. Let's try and force path them, but there we go. Krokgar does route, and that's gonna be GG. Ah, darn it. I know exactly what went wrong there. I chased off a Skink Priest of Beasts with my Krokgar for like the entire battle. Tactical Reserve Hand of the Gods. Indeed. Indeed, that too. Oh my goodness. I totally could have killed off Nakai there while I pushed everything off. And the Bastillodon. And it would have just been one Manticore. So it was a pretty bad idea just to chase off this one guy. Oh man, as for my infantry, I would have thought that the javelins would have done better against these skinks. They do have really high missile resist, so I guess that's really all they needed. And as for the Ripperdactyls, they didn't do too well either. In the end, I sort of just got shot to death. A bit unfortunate, but lessons learned for sure. And that is sort of the point of playing random here. But anyways, here we go. The next match is gonna be, gonna be up against my opponent, Felix, playing as a Lizardman up against my Vampire Coast. This is a very standard style that I'll be going. Just the classic guns, moving up forwards, and then gunning down as many of these Saurus as I can. We can get some volleys into the chameleon skinks too. That should work out pretty well. And it is going to be a mass infantry rush. I do have my sirens at the ready. Same with the bomber, so most of these guys should be routing off in just a second. I want to bomb the chameleon skinks since they are fairly easy to actually rout off. As for these feral cold ones, I can pretty easily gun them down with all my hand gunners. The flank on the left is pretty fast approaching, but I can use my sirens to handle that situation. Luther will be terror routing as much as he can. Breath attacks too onto the Saurus warriors. Could work out pretty well. And with some mass routes on the Lizardmen side, I'm feeling pretty confident. The center line of the Lizardmen have now fallen. There is a Hand of the Gods that completely misses Luther, thankfully. And let's see. I could use them to hit up this Skink Priest. It would help my Sirens quite a bit. So let's go ahead and try that out. But first of all, I'm going to rout off the Skink cohort. And then use my guns, I guess, to... you know what? They're going to try and kill off Krokgar. He is in a pretty precarious situation. All my guns are available. So I might be able to focus fire him down. There are a few chameleon skinks in the back that I'll have to worry about though. And a few Saurus warriors coming in hot too. But with the focus fire on Krokgar, if he does go down, I think that should be a pretty good victory for me. A lot of my guns are firing in on him. He should be dying pretty soon. As for these Saurus warriors, I have summons that I can throw down into the back. My scurvy dogs have killed off all of these skinks. I still have a unit of sirens, so I'm feeling fairly confident here. Especially now with Krokgar very nearly routed, and there we go, he is fully gone now. It means that the leadership for the Lizardmen will begin crumbling fairly quickly at this point, with the combination of Luther and the sirens. Another wind blast comes down, hits the sirens for quite a bit of damage. It's a bit unfortunate, but let's see. Krokgar is now shattered. I no longer need to chase him with these scurvy dogs. And even though the sirens are pretty beat up, the fact that Luther is still so healthy, it's probably going to be my saving grace here, especially with all these scurvy dogs. I think I'll be okay, but a lot of my guns are compromised, so maybe not. Despite the balance of power, things could actually turn against my favor in just a second, so gotta be real careful here. Let's keep using these scurvy dogs as effectively as I can. And let's see, all my guns are occupied at this point. So really the only thing I can do to hold up here is just use the guns as extra HP to buy as much time for my scurvy dogs as possible. Luther is going to be routing off most of these Lizardmen forces, and as long as I'm buying time, then it should be alright, since constant cycle charging from the dogs is very effective versus skinks. It does okay against Saurus warriors, but if the Saurus warriors are beat up, they actually get routed off pretty easily too. So let's just continue chasing off units. The only problem right now actually is that there are a lot of Saurus warriors. And I don't know if I'll actually be able to rout them off here. Luther too, looking a little bit stuck, does manage to take off. And now I'm going to be relying on my breath attacks to kill off the Saurus. Scurvy dogs will be pulling around, getting into position to continue cycle charging where they can. I will be losing my caster, unfortunately, but not before she gets a good amount of damage. And then, yeah, it's all about routing off these Saurus. Their leadership is fairly high despite the loss of Krotgar. Oh, but I do still have Sirens. Oopsie daisies. Oopsie daisies. That's a pretty big misplay for getting them, as they are really important for killing off this all this elite infantry, and I'll need them for actually routing off troops too. So let's go ahead and bring them back into the game. I'm going to use them to fight off this more exposed unit of Saurus, and then hopefully I can just start picking away at the Lizardmen. There are a unit of Chameleon Skinks too, and they'll be hunting down Luther. There's not too much I can really do about that situation. So far, it's looking pretty bad. Let's go ahead and unlock chat now to see what their thoughts are. And I really just need to get a solid breath attack here, I think. I do still have my Scurvy dogs. I have Luther, of course. There are multiple forms of terror that are still open to me. But man, that's a lot of Saurus. I do still have cycle charging. These feral cold ones, there we go, they are terror routed. So just using that, I might be okay. I think there's still a unit of Chameleon Skinks at much higher ammunition that I'll have to find a way to deal with. But at the moment, with these Sirens and some cycle charging, I should be able to do at least a decent amount of damage here. But these guys right here, half ammunition Chameleon Skinks. It's gonna be pretty scary. I do have my dogs to help chase them down, and I'll be splitting them up to try and occupy as many of the Lizardmen forces as I can. Luther will be taking off into the air so that he can breath attack here, and then hopefully that leads to a big rout on the Lizardmen forces. It's gonna do decent damage, nothing too crazy. The Skinks hold up fairly well, and it looks like the Lizardmen are gonna pull through, surprisingly enough. Just a ton of Saurus warriors, and a good engagement. It's gonna be it. GG. Oh my goodness, I lost the Coast versus Lizardmen matchup. Brutal, absolutely brutal. GG. Yeah, I think the map played a decent part too. The misplays, the Sirens got hit by this caster a ton. If I had played more smartly with the Sirens, I think I could have that could have won it. Let's see. As for the infantry, or not the infantry, the feral cold ones, they didn't do too well. I think I shut them down okay. It was really just getting overrun by Saurus in the late game. You really need the handguns to stay alive to deal with them, or to use pistol summons and shoot them in the back. And in the end, I wasn't able to kill them off fast enough. I think in general though, the biggest misplay were these Sirens. I could have gotten a lot more value off of them. So this game up against Biblington, the Beastmen versus the Empire. We are facing up against not a kite build. Seems like an infantry build with some huntsmen, perhaps some cavalry on the flank. So let's go ahead and start maneuvering my cavalry to spot what's actually going on with this build. I have a ton of counter chargers here, which will do pretty good up against Knights of the Blazing Sun. The Razor Gores, as long as they can actually get a counter charge, should be able to do pretty well. And there we go. There are indeed quite a few huntsmen here. A lot of cavalry on the flanks. It's looking like it's going to be pretty interesting. Now, I can kite away these Empire Knights, and it does seem to be mostly Empire Knights. There is a unit of Demogryph Knights that I'll have to be a bit wary of. But this isn't too scary. I have my Spirit Leech caster over there too, who should be able to do fairly well. And as for these huntsmen, now that they're actually in range, I think I need to actually dive into the fight now. As for my caster, I do have Vile Tide over here. I'll wait for the cavalry to clump up before I actually cast it. And I just want to advance forward to start punching through this front line. The front line of the Empire is fairly weak, so I can take that fight pretty confidently. And my cavalry can move in too to begin cycle charging. Franz will be a bit of a threat, and I'll need to make sure that I actually have some. I'll need to make sure that I have throwing axes in the late game to actually kill off Franz. And as for the Huntsmen, they are actually fairly undefended, so I'm going to start diving into the back line to try and deal with them. As for my heroes, they definitely need to stay far and away from Franz. They do not want to be diving into that fight. And if I can actually shut down these Huntsmen, I think I'll be in a pretty good situation. The archers have done well, but the cavalry is going to be hunting down my back line too in just a second. I do have a lot of Razor Gore Herd that can move in to countercharge them, so I'm not especially worried there. As for these Pistoliers, I should be able to kill them with a Vile Tide, which does take them out, but it means that I'm not really doing too much to kill the cavalry in my back. Yeah, it's just I'm relying more on my Razor Gores to deal with that situation, and it's no guarantee that that will go okay. Just taking stock of the situation, it looks like these Empire Knights, their leadership is holding pretty well because Franz is there. But since they are surrounded, I do manage to break them, and I'm feeling much better about using the Vile Tide up here earlier. So that's most of the cavalry gone for the Empire now, as I just did have a pretty huge cavalry advantage and a lot of spells too to actually wear them down. So not entirely unexpected, and I guess now the goal is to try and finish off Franz. He is he's in a pretty bad situation right now. The caster doesn't have dwellers below, which means that I can pretty confidently bring in a full surround against him. And if I can actually take him out, that will be game for the Empire, as they really do need their single entities to cause terror to all my Beastmen units. So I'll just be committing as much as I can to actually take him out. Even if I don't take him out, though, I think just based on my infantry advantage and the fact that I was able to take out the Huntsman, I think I should be fine regardless. In fact, I'm not sure why the balance of power is so Empire favored. It could just be because Franz is providing so much balance of power, but that's definitely pretty surprising. As he really shouldn't be able to win this engagement. He does manage to pull out though, and I'll try to re-secure my surround on top of him. And then if I can just keep that up, then I think I'm good. Some Spirit Leeches to slowly wear him down, and then some cavalry just moving in to start throwing some axes onto him. So I think that's going to be pretty good. I don't really have any uses for Vile Tide anymore, so I'll save my Winds of Magic for Spirit Leeches instead. Then we should be good. Now, in terms of micro, to actually continue pinning Franz down, it's important that you pull your cavalry forwards to, in front of him to actually stop him from moving. Otherwise, he can actually escape if you're not too careful. So I'm just keeping a very close eye on him to see if there's any situation where he pulls out. But before he does, I do manage to push the Empire into army losses. And that's gonna be a GG. Finally did it, guys. Beastmen taking the victory. Ooh, alright. So, essentially, that came down to me killing off all this cavalry. After they were shut down, Franz didn't really have any support, and I could pretty easily run over all these Huntsmen too. I think my push through with the Centaurs could have been done better, but it was still enough to collapse his Empire backline. The fact that I had a 20 stack too really meant that I outnumbered these guys, and In fact, it seems like this army is really small for most Empire forces. I guess it was the Demogryph Knights. But in the end, I don't think they're too amazing versus a swarm style of beastmen play like this. Okay, so here we go. We are in a Counts vs. Skaven game. Looks like we are up against many warp grinders, Icket Claw, and a chieftain. Okay, interesting build. Let's go ahead and I guess start spirit leeching the warp grinders is probably the most efficient action that we can take. The Vargulf will pretty happily fight Icket Claw if he has to. And Manfred, he will be taking a bit of skirmisher damage here, but these skirmishers, they are not too worrisome at all, as I will be able to hit them with the Black Coach. Now the warp grinders can and will pin down the Black Coach if I'm not careful, so pulling that out as quickly as possible is going to be quite important. And then my knights are going to move into position to shut down the all those skirmishers. My front line is just buying time. I don't really want them to get engaged too quickly here. And looks like a spell comes down that I completely don't recognize. Interesting. But cool. Let's see here. I'll keep spirit leeching the warp grinders. It looks like it does do, it was an area of effect damage. It actually hits my White Kings for quite a bit of damage, but they're still holding up pretty well. As for the Vikstrin's Death Squad, they will take quite a bit of damage from these Scab Scrats, and I think that should be able to wear them down pretty quickly. And over here on the left flank, with the combination of my single entities and a bit of terror, I am able to get a pretty nice route off. So that's a pretty nice pick, but I have been taking a lot of damage on my knights, so I'm gonna have to be a little bit careful here. There is a big fight going on too in the center, and it's looking a little bit scary. I'm actually going to disengage from that and instead just pull away with my knights and just look for a better position to fight. I've actually taken quite a bit of damage here, and I really want to make sure that these knights stay nice and healthy. Looking like I will lose a single unit of black knights is definitely a pretty big misplay for me. Instead, I'm just going to be playing it safe, leaving my troops in the back, and just slowly pulling apart the Skaven with Scab Scrats is going to be a much better option here. But I've already lost a lot of infantry, and it looks like Manfred too is actually getting hunted down by these single entities. Let's see if I can actually pull him out. I have knights at the ready to actually to support him here, and using them plus the Vargulf, I think I should be able to win out this engagement very well. An Overcast and a Heck will heal up everything there. And there's no rush to really push into the back lines of the Skaven at this point, since they don't really have too many guns that I need to worry about. As for these Scab Scrats, they are back off cooldown. I'll be able to rout off most of the clan rats there, and the overextension of the single entities looks like it will give me the victory there. Another Scab Scrat, sort of wasted. You do want to be very careful, and you want to make sure that you're actually using them effectively. So that's a pretty rough misplay, but the fact that I've chased off Icket Claw at this point means that I'm feeling pretty comfortable. I'm not too worried about this situation. Another spell goes down. Let's see what it's actually called. Oh, Flinching Ruin. That's what it is. It actually does pretty good damage to single entities. But it looks like it won't be enough, at least in this situation. The Vargulf chasing off Icket Claw, but it actually does have to disengage since he runs back into the range of these gutter runners. And it looks like it's still going to be a bit of a fight here. But my Blood Knights are still alive. I still have the Varix Reavers, which I totally forgot about. And it seems like, despite the misplays, I should still be able to pull out a victory here. In the end, my single entities catching out so many forces for the Vampire Counts is going to be really rough for them to handle. I just have to finish them off and chase them down. Then I'll be good to go. The infantry isn't really any worry at all, as I do have the black coach and a ton of cavalry. So it's just closing out the game now. GG, I think. Things could still go terribly wrong, but I do have a lot of heals left on Manfred. So I'm not too worried, unless this assassin just pulls off a miracle and absolutely kills everything. Chieftain is nearly off the map. And then let's just continue microing this black coach to push through these forces, but it looks like it doesn't matter. My opponent taps out, and that's going to be GG. We saw the power of the Blood Knights there. Full surround on Claw, basically got all of their value off. The Varix Reavers, I sort of just forgot about them. But in the end, I feel like the Warp Grinders didn't really do too much. The Gutter Runners didn't put too much pressure on. They got a lot of damage value, but they couldn't really kill anything. So all of my actual important units managed to survive into the late game. Had he actually killed off Manfred, or if he had been more careful with the single entities, I would be a little bit more worried there, since my infantry was dying. But in the end, it worked out okay. So, let's just get into the game. We got a greenskin build. We're up against the big gun and a lot of savage orcs. Probably a lot of well, let's see. There's a lot of stealth units here since the greenskin army is at 1200. So I'm gonna need to weed them out as best as I can. As for the approach, you can dodge the shots of the big gun by pulling out your troops, and if it hits infantry, I'm not too worried about that. I will have to pivot though, that will take a while. And as for my army, it is going to be a fairly mobile one, loads of cavalry. And you know what, given that they are so mobile, I'm going to pull them over to the far flanks so that they can actually help hit up a few infantry units here. For my own infantry, they will just continue to pivot so that they can hit the greenskin lines at the same time. And then that'll buy me a lot of time for my chariots to actually to run over these savage orcs. In the meantime, I'll make chat public. So if you guys want to show up on YouTube, I guess, feel free to message in chat. Nothing too special, but it will buy time while we wait for my army to actually get into position, as the early stages of a Vampire Counts game can sometimes drag on just a tiny bit, as I'm just slowly getting my troops into position. The Rogue Idol can't really get too much damage because I'm dodging with my cavalry, so it should be good. Now I can also move in my Lord to try and get some Dragon Breaths on these Orc boys. It likely won't do too much damage though, and I'm still really wondering, where is that army for the Greenskins? There are a ton of stealth units here that I just do not know where they are. Perhaps they're in the forest? Perhaps it's a bunch of Night Goblins. It could be a bunch of Night Goblin archers. Given that there's not a ton of archers here, I can't just move in with my Lord, and there we go. We do see a single unit of nasty skulkers, a few rusty errors, and let's see, some more Night Goblin archers. So it is going to be a pretty heavy archer build coming in from the Greenskins, and the goal is to actually push in and collapse in on top of them. The black coaches can pull through troops fairly quickly. I do actually pull it directly into some nasty skulkers though, but if he does use his slow, I will be able to countercharge him with my cavalry, so that's not too worrisome. In fact, I even rout off the nasty skulkers pretty quickly, so I'm feeling okay actually. In fact, if I can just rout off all these infantry, then I'll be good to go. I'm hitting up the archers, the cavalry is collapsing in fairly well. I just need to make sure that these savage orcs don't get too much damage on my forces. The archers here too are really pummeling my black knights. And I might even lose them. And by Black Knights, I mean Blood Knights. So I'm going to use a summon just to pin down these archers, and hopefully I'll be able to save them. I'll disengage as quickly as I can. And it looks like a Fanatic Bomb actually drops in on top of my zombies. That's actually a fairly decent trade for me, as that is just a unit of summons that would be dying anyways. So I'm pretty happy with that. And with my Lord, I want to get into position to breath attack. So let's take them into the skies. Also pull away with my cavalry to a safer position. And then let's get ready for the Dragon Breath. My infantry, they are slowly dying. Slowly but surely. And hopefully my infantry lasts long enough into the late game where I can pull out a victory. The breath attack does work very well though. And with the greenskin forces now routing in separate areas of the map, I can start chasing them off with my cavalry. However, I have lost a few units of cavalry myself, and hopefully I can pull them together and try getting a good heal off on all of them. I specifically want to heal up my Blood Knights, so I might have to let these Black Knights crumble away. So for the greenskin army, I'm going to be mostly ignoring this right flank for a while I clean up all the units on this left flank. I don't really need to do a hard engage over here, so I can even pull away with my infantry and then just focus on cleaning up as many savage orcs and goblins as I can in this area. Looks like I will be getting quite a few picks here, which works out pretty well in my favor. And then in the meantime, I'll just continue pulling away with this infantry, saving them so that they don't crumble away until much later in the battle. As for healing, I'm going to be as efficient as possible by healing up as many units as I can, which caps out at 4 for the vampire counts. And then as soon as these savage orc big guns are cleaned up, I'm going to be re-engaging into the greenskins. Most of their infantry is gone at this point, so there aren't too many threats for my cavalry. I'll be moving in with the chariots too, to pressure the goblins. And if we do run into any issues with savage orcs surrounding my chariots, I will be able to get a pretty nice counter charge with the rest of my cavalry. So let's see if that works. My Lord too has a bunch of breath attacks, and as for the big gun, I'm not too worried about that at all. As in the late game, my Lord can pretty easily finish it off, I think. Chariots are now in, and they're just going to be causing havoc in the back line, bouncing around as much as they can. But one of them actually does get fermented fungi, and it could take a bit of damage here. So let's see if I can actually save it here. Skarsnik does dive in to try and kill the chariot, but with my Dragon Lord landing directly on top of him with all his debuffs, I think I should be able to kill him. The initial landing does definitely do a lot of damage, but the big gun is in the area, so I'm actually going to disengage with my Lord to try and pull him into a safer position. As for infantry, I have lost quite a bit of infantry at this point, so the clock is ticking. Let's see here. I do still have a unit of skeletons, but it means that cycle charging will eventually run out. As for my cavalry, they are getting a little bit low. Let's see here. They're getting a little bit low, but I do have another heal coming up. So hopefully that pick-me-up is enough to last into the late game. And with how little infantry the greenskins have left, I think I should be okay. I'll be throwing down a raised dead on top of these guys. And then, yeah, I'll just be throwing down a raised dead. And whoa, do not land. Oh my gosh, he landed. Yeah, I need my Lord to throw down a breath attack on top of Skarsnik. Raised dead will throw down zombies, and then that will give me a lot of time for cycle charges. But it looks like that might not even be needed, as Skarsnik is actually getting escorted off by this black coach. So I'll use that to my advantage. I'll send in my Dragon Lord, and then hopefully just get him sniped out. I don't really need to be fighting the big gun at this point. But a fermented fungi does drop down on my Lord. And we'll see if he's able to take out Skarsnik. He's actually quite slowed. So let's actually disengage with the black coach so that he can actually catch up with Skarsnik. Disengage with these troops so that they don't get murdered by the big gun. And as long as I can win this fight over here, I think I'll be okay. The plan was to ignore the big gun all game so that I could cycle charge it to death with my Lord. But that won't really be possible if my Lord takes too much damage in his fight with Skarsnik. So just trying to be as careful as possible here, keeping a close eye on it to make sure he's not taking too many hits. And as soon as Skarsnik routs, I think I'll be okay, but he is anti-large, and given that the fight is actually looking a bit close, I'm going to bring in cavalry to support in this engagement. As I really need my Lord to be on high HP. And AoE does drop too. Hits my cavalry for a bit. Skarsnik still managing to stay alive. Greenskin Lords in general are very tough fighters. But it looks like he does finally go down. Means I can now regroup for the final engagement. It's just going to be an overcast and a heck on all of these guys. And then a big final charge onto the big gun, and then I'll be good to go. There we go. I have enough winds of magic, and ooh, I even have my breath attacks, which is something that I need to practice using more often. Just because breath attacks do a lot of damage, and if you're not using them as often as possible, it is a bit of a missed opportunity. So breath attack directly on top. See, I didn't actually see it go down, but it did do a decent amount of damage. And just flying directly into the back of the idol with the extra charge bonus is going to be enough to take it out. Unless a crazy hit lands on my Dragon Lord, it should go down. Looks like my Lord is having a bit of a hard time with his attack animations. So to improve that, you can sort of wiggle him around. But it looks like the Rogue Idol's also having a hard time with attack animations, so it doesn't really matter. There we go. GG. And that's gonna be it. Yeah. Yeah, just everything not attacking. That was a really weird ending. But when you have cavalry in the mix, sometimes single entities will bug out like that. Now, talking about cavalry. They did okay. I could have kept them alive better. There was no reason for them to really die against this army, except for fermented fungi. As for my Lord, he took a bit more damage than he should have. To archers and Skarsnik, he should have been cycle charging instead. And the black coaches, they did okay. I kept them alive. They killed infantry. That's basically their job. Just slowly picking apart the greenskin forces and chasing them off is usually what you want to do versus wider builds like this.